So as I thought about this idea worth spreading that I decided to talk about today, I came up with several different titles along the way. One was Addiction for Sale. The other was I'm Not My Brother's Keeper. And the other was Harm for Hire. And I just had to stop with that one because it sounded like a bad James Bond movie. So when I really got down to it, what I wanted to talk about, and what I do want to talk about, is expendable people. You see, when we use a known addictive substance to generate revenue or as an economic development strategy, we also make a decision that there must be expendable people. And how can I say that? Well, what we know is when there's more alcohol, we have more car crashes, higher health care costs, and more domestic violence. When we have more marijuana, we have more youth who use, more workplace injuries, and more people who drive while intoxicated. And when we have more opioids, we have a higher addiction rate, we have more people who die from overdose, and we have a higher crime rate. Just ask any policeman. These are the kinds of things that those of us who work in public health talk about all the time. And today, I would like to take us on a little meander through my little corner of public health while I try really hard to not be the most annoying kind of fun police. The best way to describe it is this. When we have more of a known addictive substance that's potentially harmful injected into the marketplace, more people are going to buy it. That's the point, right? More people are going to consume it, and then more people are going to experience harm. That's an equation that we have tried to grow out of through millennia. We've tried to evolve out of it. We've tried to become more enlightened, but it really is just an equation that can't change. More of a harmful thing equals more harm. And when I talk about harmful substances, I think that most people would probably expect me to talk about the opioid crisis that we're in the midst of. That wouldn't be a bad expectation. The last time that we got numbers was about 2 weeks ago. It was for 2016 from the Centers for Disease Control. And they report that 64,000 people died in 2016 from drug overdose. 64,000 people. Let that sink in. For me, that becomes real when I think about my county. That's about the size of my county and a little more. It's like someone took a bomb, dropped it in the middle of the county, and wiped out the population, and then some around the edges. We're losing far too many precious, precious people. What most folks don't know is that alcohol kills more. From the same Centers for Disease Control, we find that 88,000 people die every year from alcohol-related causes. That's 88,000 people who, what? Just made bad choices? I don't think so. I think it might be because we have all collectively been sold a fantasy that harm related to alcohol only comes to those who can't or won't drink responsibly. And with that in mind, I want to talk about one specific alcohol-related harm that doesn't require over-the-top drinking, and that's female breast cancer. The researchers from the Boston University School of Medicine took a look at this issue. And what they found was that every year, 6,000 women die from alcohol-related breast cancer, alcohol-attributed breast cancer. 6,000 women who have probably never been told that there is no known safe amount of alcohol for females. You see, alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen. That means that it is a known human carcinogen. Not that it might be, not that it could be, not that it possibly is, but it is known to cause cancer in humans. 7 different kinds of cancer to be specific. It's one of the most preventable causes of breast cancer that we're aware of. And who talks about prevention? Who talks to women about prevention as it relates to alcohol? We're really good in our country, we're really good at talking about screening, early identification. We're good at talking about treatment. We're good at talking about cure. But why don't we talk about prevention? Could it be that if we did, alcohol sales might go down? Could it be that if we did, it might expose the companies that make alcohol as companies that see women as expendable people? Ladies, I hope that your inner feminist will rise to meet me in this moment. And gentlemen, if you have a mom, a sister, a wife, a grandmother, an aunt, a woman that you love, you can get your feminist on too. Because what I want you to know is that the companies that make alcohol probably know the research better than I do. They know that there is no known safe amount of alcohol for female breast tissue. And yet, we have hard pink lemonade to raise money for alcohol research. We have hard pink cider that was developed to support the survivors of breast cancer. We have beer in a really special pink can to bring about breast cancer awareness. And during the month of October, it's coming, we have countless Pink Your Drink specials to raise awareness for breast cancer during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. How is it that in our culture we accept a company who makes a cancer-causing product using that product to raise money for the victims of the cancer it causes? I mean, would we support a smoke-in for lung cancer? Let me move that just a bit. Would we support a bake sale for diabetes? Let me move way outside the box. Would we support a pig roast for PETA? I don't think so. I think there might be pickets and protests and letters to the editor, and we would stop it. Now, I get it. Alcohol is lucrative. It has a very high profit margin. And I want to say right here and right now that most people who buy a product to support a cause do so with the very best of intentions. Most people who fundraise using the product do so with the very best of intentions. There is no disparaging here. But when we look under the covers just a little bit, we find corporations who use the product for revenue, and we find governments who use the product for economic development strategies, who know that those strategies and that revenue puts a significant portion of our population at risk. Now, we have this conversation in our culture all the time, and we should, about the balance between personal rights and public health. I mean, who's to tell you that you shouldn't be able to drink the drink of your choice because it's overshadowed by the harm that it might cause another person? I'm here to tell you that it shouldn't. I think you should be able to drink whatever you want to drink. See? I'm not the fun police. I think the bigger question is this: should we support a revenue-generating product or an economic development strategy if it puts a certain population at risk? I think not supporting those things is different than taking someone's right away. So, how do we tip our culture to become a society that rejects the need for expendable people? I have a couple of ideas. First, require that all public policy and all public funding pass the public health test. It really has become all the rage to use gambling, alcohol, marijuana as an economic development strategy. It's not too much to ask of our leaders that they look at all of the potential outcomes for those strategies. And what we need to know is if a strategy puts a certain segment of our population at risk, does the good so far outweigh the potential harm that it's worth the risk? That's the public health test. Second, be aware of those fundraising strategies that make you scratch your head. I have a few in mind. I'm not going to give you the names. I'm just going to tell you about them. They're real because I want to protect the well-intended. So, how about a bar crawl to support mental health? How about a wine tasting to support girls' fitness? And how about a Christmas-themed bar crawl to raise money for domestic violence? Yeah, they're real. And what do you do if a fundraiser makes you scratch your head? Well, you can use your awesome power of persuasion to talk to the people who developed the fundraiser and see if you can't move them from using a product that might harm the population they hope to help to some other kind of fundraising. And if active activism, boy, that's redundant, isn't your thing, if that's not the way that you roll, I get it, then you can simply write a check to your favorite charity where your money will go further anyway. And finally, how do we become a culture that rejects the need for expendable people? Be compassionate toward those that are most vulnerable to the harm. One of my favorite sayings when I'm talking about this topic is from Lori Lieber, and it says, "Holding young people responsible for underage drinking is like blaming fish for dying in a polluted stream." And shouldn't we feel that way about everyone? I mean, if we're going to pollute our environment with known addictive substances, shouldn't we show compassion toward those that succumb to the harm? I would posit to you that people who find themselves in the expendable pile never intended to be there. I know this because I was an expendable person. I grew up in a family that was riddled with alcoholism, and I had no way of knowing the impact that it was going to have on my life. But at 25 years sober, I get it. I do. I get it. My drinking and the drinking of those around me had far-reaching implications for my life. And in my mid-20s, I was a fully addicted human being. There is no shame in being vulnerable. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that the people who experience harm associated with alcohol and other drugs do so by choice, and they get what they deserve. My answer to that is most vulnerability to harm happens either genetically or in childhood, long before an adult choice comes into play. We have the opportunity to make a few small changes that are relatively painless to us in order to protect the most vulnerable. And we must do it together. We have the opportunity to be life savers. And we have the opportunity to move people from the expendable column to the you matter column. And who among us doesn't want to matter? Thank you.